The value of this piece is absolutely off the charts. I believe that there's tremendous value in all vintage watches, but a chronograph, especially one with a Valjoux 7733 movement, which is a foundational movement in the watch industry. This eventually turns into the 7750, which is an automatic movement, which really becomes the foundational piece for all modern chronographs. Unless you're looking at some manufacturers that completely manufacture their own. That includes early Omegas before they start doing a lot of their own in-house movements. Breitling, IWC. Personally, I have an IWC Top Gun, and I know that that's a knockdown kit from a Valjoux 7750. It ends up being this foundational or this history legacy piece. So this movement, while being a manual wind, ends up being the foundational piece that leads to this. This is an unbelievable chronograph. Valjoux ended up purchasing the rights to Venus, and Venus was one of the best chronograph manufacturers of the 1940s and 50s, I guess even into the 60s. But they bought this patent rights, and this leads into the new Valjoux series. It's a long history. It's a long path, really. If you're into vintage chronographs, you're going to find that you have a lot of Landerins, whether it's a 48, a 148. You're going to get a bunch of Venus 180s, and then you get into the Valjoux, which is a little bit later. And so it's a history that builds on each other and leads into these modern day watches. I love my IWC Top Gun. I know that the new ones are a little bit thinner. They use their own in-house movements, but they're still foundational pieces that use this legacy and that use this technology. Now you get all of that, and the watches that I listed, you go to the store today and you go and buy them. Most of them are going to be over 10,000 Canadian. I know they'd be a little bit less if it was American or euros. You go in on the secondhand market and you're still looking at 5,000 plus, unless it's in terrible condition. This I'm selling on my website for 550 Canadian dollars, and it's in incredible condition. More than being just an incredible condition, it's also modern sizing. So unlike a lot of the vintage chronographs, you see them, they're anywhere from 31, 32 millimeters into that 35, 36 range, and they wear small. And a lot of them have 16 millimeter or 18 millimeter bands. And so not only is the watch smaller on the wrist, the band doesn't really add that presence as well. This is modern sizing. The industry is moving towards this 38 to 40 millimeter size range, but more importantly, this has that 60s or 70s style. It has that square cushion case, which adds to the wearability. It makes it look larger on the wrist. I actually wore this watch today because I knew I was gonna be doing this video and I wanted to get some footage, and people were saying to me like, wow, I love that watch. What is it? And I was telling them it's a vintage 1960s Croton Chronograph, and they were like, wow, it really looks like a modern watch. I tend not to go down that vintage path because they're too small. But this is kind of that weird exception. Not only is it in beautiful condition, the dial is stunning, the black on gold is done really well, and it has that little bit of sportiness, but just enough elegance to make it stunning. It just really is a special piece, and with the sizing, it's really rare. And being at the price point that it is, well under $1,000, you really can't go wrong with a piece like this. It's something that I highly recommend. Of course, I recommend mine because it's on my website and I have it for sale, but just any vintage chronograph from this era, especially in this case style. It's a little bit different and probably something that a lot of people haven't looked at, but something I highly, highly recommend. Thank you for looking at this video. Thank you for listening. This is Ryan from Little King Watches.